I would briefly like to point out some additional supportive observations that point to a subspace cavity sun. Could the sun propagate a magnetic field powerful enough to maintain a subspace bottle such as I have described? Solar loops are powerful magnetic fields that burst through the cool photospheric sunspots and reach high into the sun's corona, and then proceed to create towering organized plasma loops that can reach temperatures in the millions of degrees. These looped magnetic plasma structures contain a significant amount of mass. Nevertheless, these magnetic loops sit happily suspended above the sun, seemingly unaware of the sun's gravitational pull, as if it were of no consequence. How do coronal loops do this? These loops are highly organized electromagnetic phenomena in which dissociated electrons and protons organize themselves into like camps, each particle contributing its magnetic potential to the whole. A loop plasma configuration could hypothetically have a magnetic potential with a magnitude only slightly less than 1 × 10⁻39 times greater than the gravitational force. In scientific terminology, they are powerful juju. Though faced with the sun's gravitational pull, a force 28 times more powerful than that of Earth's, their structures show no sign whatsoever of being imposed upon by the sun's powerful gravitational attraction. Solar coronal loops are a pretty blatant hint that the sun's subterranean magnetic field is a force to be reckoned with, and it is sobering to consider that the loops are merely fading, temporary visitors below the solar shell, a pallid show of force compared to what must be magnitude-stronger magnetic fields that lurk beneath the sun's photosphere. Fields certainly strong enough to maintain a subspace magnetic bottle. The next natural phenomenon I'd like to present is that of sonoluminescence, which is the emission of short bursts of light from imploding cavity bubbles in a liquid when excited by sound. Experiments indicate that these cavity bubbles can reach temperatures above 19,000 degrees Celsius. Note that these cavity bubbles are not the result of any central object of mass suspended in liquid, but are instead the result of resonance, oscillations that one might compare to the solar photospheric shell. Another point of interest: when a gun is fired underwater, the bullet produces an extremely low-pressure cavity. What is so impressive about these cavities is that they exhibit a surprising capacity for conserving energy in an organized manner, in that instead of the force of the cavity merely dissipating in the water, they oscillate, contracting, and then exploding outwards again. These cavities can do this several times before the energy is expended. I believe this to be a rudimentary action, a lower energy version of the two forces that continuously battle for dominance in solar propagation, a continual magnetic expulsion creating subspace, and the corresponding implosion of space upon it. The cavity created by a gunshot in water is a miniature low-energy mimic of the sun's oscillations, an eternal battle of implosion and explosion that we observe through the science of helioseismology. Then there is the mantis shrimp that kills its prey by creating cavities so energetic that they produce light and temperature comparable to the surface of the sun. Here we can see the repeating pattern of energy emitting cavitation in nature. It is not necessary to describe a dense interior in order to propagate energy. My final observation of note is the lightning initiation problem in thunderclouds. The problem is that the measured charge between the two clouds appears to be way too weak to inaugurate a lightning discharge between the two. And after the lightning is inaugurated, how does the lightning propagate for tens of miles through clouds? How do you turn air from being an insulator into a conductor? This puzzle could conceivably be solved if lightning is a spiral of electrons and protons temporarily producing a subspace filament within. This filament becomes a superconductor highway that allows for the unobstructed flow of electrical current. I acknowledge that the concept presented here is a brutish thumbnail outline, perhaps not unlike Aristarchus plopping the sun into the center of the solar system with exceedingly little data to back up the concept. But there are too many repetitions in nature that begs for this hypothesis to be taken under consideration and seriously investigated. With the observations present, it certainly aligns itself to a much greater extent than that of the hydrogen fusion core theory, which scientists slavishly subscribe to with a cultish zeal on par with that of our 2,000-year geocentric dark age. Will humanity have to laboriously trudge down yet another dark path of our own creation? It is presently popular for quantum mechanics scientists to claim that absolute vacuum or subspace is not possible, that the dictates of vacuum mechanics on this largely unknown frontier would have it that subspace cannot exist. But then again, less than 100 years ago, knowledgeable scientists claimed that aircraft could not fly faster than the speed of sound. I do understand the proposal offered here gives birth to a plethora of questions. How does subspace that gives rise to the magnetic bottle deflect all radiation? Is it something in the nature of subspace itself? I cannot answer this. Also, from Earth geology, we have a pretty good idea that the Sun has been around for about 5 billion years. How is it then that the matter that makes up the photosphere shell has not long since exhausted its fuel, causing subspace to collapse with an almighty pop? We are in a time when the Voyager space probes are at the very frontier of our solar system, and we are discovering that this heliospheric boundary where the Sun's envelope meets galactic space is much more complex than the bow of a ship ploughing through an ocean. Quite the contrary, we are discovering that there is a complex exchange of magnetic fields, radiation, and particular matter between the solar envelope and the galactic space surrounding it. We have a pretty good idea that as the Sun orbits the galaxy, the shock wave of the Sun's magnetic field impacts external space, causing statically charged particles to be captured and ride the Sun's magnetic fields into the poles, where they are absorbed, somewhat reminiscent of a feeding mechanism. Could this be the function of what is turning out to be a surprisingly complex outer heliosphere shell? That as the Sun orbits about the galaxy, meandering through gas and dust clouds, that it is using gravitation and the magnetic heliosphere to graze and maintain the Sun's photosphere? Another thought which I base on laboratory-proven observations is that at the boundary of almost perfect vacuums, virtual particles spring into life. So could it be that for a monster magnetic bottle full of subspace, virtual particles are just child's play in comparison? Rather, that the electrons and protons, or perhaps whole hydrogen atoms, spring forth from the subspace? It just seems so unintuitive, but the observations we already have force me to contemplate it. I'm sure you can think of other questions, or if I'm fortunate, the solutions. Thank you for watching this presentation all the way through. I'm impressed. Goodbye.